Just who was the best of the best in 2019? Well, find out as I hand out my 2019 year-end awards here on WrestleDOWN. Hey YouTube, are you ready for your hot tag? Because if you are, it's definitely time to warp.
What's up, boys and girls? This is Lance White, and you are watching WGS-TV.
What's up, guys? I'm the WrestleGamer. Welcome back to a very special episode of WrestleDOWN right here on WGS-TV. With 2019 coming into a close, there are a lot of things to look back here in the year for professional wrestling, especially with everything WWE has done, with everything that NXT has done. There are some things that Impact Wrestling has done as well that's pretty much worthy of being talked about here. But when we get down to the nitty-gritty, just who was the best of the best? To answer that question, let's hand out some awards. So guys, the way I'm going to do it here is I am going to give you my top 5 in no particular order whatsoever. I'm going to give you my reasons for why I'm including them, and then I'm going to tell you who exactly wins in each category. So that's how I'm going to do it. So we're going to start with Daniel Bryan. This is for the 2019 Male Wrestler of the Year. Going into the year, Daniel Bryan was the current WWE Champion with the new Daniel Bryan gimmick and was steadily becoming one of the top heels on the SmackDown brand. His title defense inside the Elimination Chamber was exciting to say the least, and his feud with Kofi Kingston over the WWE Championship at WrestleMania earlier this year was by far one of the better contemporary championship matches in WWE. Later in the year, the new Daniel Bryan was heavily involved in the angle involving Roman Reigns and the mystery attacker and Eric Rowan, and after it was revealed to be Eric Rowan, Bryan went from being a heel to being a tweener of sorts. He tagged up with Roman Reigns as they defeated the Bludgeon Brothers at the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view. Now, if you want to talk about standout matches this year for Daniel Bryan, how about the match he had with Adam Cole for the NXT Championship a couple of nights after Crown Jewel? It would be after his first encounter with The Fiend, Bray Wyatt, that Bryan reverted back to his 2010 look, or as some people would call it, the Bryan Danielson look, and once again became the leader of the Yes Movement and is currently the #1 contender for the Universal Championship. Now, speaking of Bray Wyatt, he too is on the list here for 2019 Male Wrestler of the Year. When Bray went down to injury in the latter part of 2018, he wasn't really doing anything. However, it was in 2019 when we would get first introduced to the Firefly Funhouse, as Bray's character was completely reinvented in two different aspects. The first one being the creepy yet entertaining Mr. Rogers-like character, and then there's the introduction of The Fiend, his darker, more demonic persona. We were introduced to this side of his gimmick at SummerSlam when The Fiend steamrolled through Finn Balor. And of course, for the better part of 2019, Wyatt was involved in a feud with Seth Rollins over the Universal Championship. That Hell in a Cell match back in October was indeed controversial with the way it was stopped, because a lot of people were expecting Rollins to drop the title right then and there, but we will get that at WWE Crown Jewel when The Fiend defeated Seth Rollins to win said Universal Championship. When Wyatt took on The Miz at TLC, it wasn't his Fiend gimmick that we saw, but his lighter Mr. Rogers-like persona, who seemed to enjoy the pain for the most part, which kind of reminded me of Mankind in his early WWF days. Wyatt is currently the Universal Champion, set to defend against Daniel Bryan at the Royal Rumble pay-per-view. We have Chris Jericho, the Ayatollah of rock and rolla. Chris Jericho can go anywhere and reinvent himself over and over again and be immensely successful at what he does. Look how successful and over the list gimmick was in WWE. When Jericho made the jump to AEW, it was indeed one of their first major pickups, and when he became the first ever AEW World Heavyweight Champion when he defeated Hangman Adam Page, Jericho would continue to show how entertaining and brilliant he is, not only in the ring but also on the microphone, with his a little bit of the bubbly catchphrase, which has gotten so popular that it's actually now a brand of sparkling wine that can be purchased through the AEW website. Jericho has morphed into of sorts into Le Champion, becoming the leader of the Inner Circle, and is made for some really great TV segments on the AEW side of things. His last title defense against the American Nightmare, Cody, was an immensely good match, which had so many twists and turns, you didn't know what was going to happen until it happened, which makes for a really great wrestling match. Jericho has the ability to cut a golden promo whenever he wants. Plain and simple. Currently, Jericho looks set to defend the AEW World Championship against Jon Moxley at AEW Revolution in February, but Jericho is also heavily involved in Wrestle Kingdom 14 in his match, and I will let you guys know what happens when that match happens later on in January. We also have the current NXT...
A little bit of the bubbly!
As I forgot I had that set there. You guys heard Chris Jericho's little thing here as Adam Cole popped up. My apologies. But another person to consider for 2019 Male Wrestler of the Year was Adam Cole. His feud with Johnny Gargano over the NXT Championship was really the precipice of it. He was defeated by Gargano in the 2 out of 3 falls match at NXT TakeOver New York, but would come back to win it at NXT TakeOver 25. We can't forget about his championship defense against Matt Riddle on NXT's debut episode on USA. And I've already mentioned Cole's involvement on the main roster with his match that he had with Daniel Bryan for the NXT Championship. He also had a match with Seth Rollins. Now, albeit that match wasn't as good as the one with Daniel Bryan, but I would put it right up there with it. Cole was involved in War Games yet again with the Undisputed Era that saw Cole take an air raid crash from the top of the War Games cage. And for those of you who have never seen it, it's about a 20-foot drop through a table. Then Kevin Dunn cut to Dr. Britt Baker, who is Adam Cole's girlfriend, who is also signed to All Elite Wrestling, and we all saw her reaction in the crowd. The very next night at Survivor Series, he would go on to defend the NXT Championship successfully against the Bruiserweight Pete Dunne, and just recently defended the championship against Finn Balor and retained thanks to the returning Johnny Gargano. Now, Kofi Kingston. By far, Kofi has had probably one of the biggest breakout years of his entire career. Replacing the injured Mustafa Ali in the Elimination Chamber, his performance in that match garnered a following and a movement for Kofi Mania. Mr. McMahon placed roadblock after roadblock in front of Kofi on the road to WrestleMania, which eventually turned into one of the better title matches at WrestleMania, as I had already mentioned. Kofi would go on to have a pretty good rivalry with Kevin Owens over the championship before ultimately dropping the title to Brock Lesnar after one F5. Shows how much Vince actually valued what Kofi has done as WWE Champion. Now, when Xavier Woods went down to injury, Kofi would take his place alongside Big E as they regained the SmackDown Tag Team Championship, and arguably had a really great ladder match against the Revival at TLC, where they successfully retained the championship. And possibly, Kofi has more wins than anyone in 2019, barring Ricochet. So, after hearing all of those, Who do I pick for Male Wrestler of the Year? Well, hands down, it's got to go to Chris Jericho. Chris Jericho has put AEW on the map. He has completely reinvented himself. He is probably one of the main focal points of the entire promotion. And like I said before, Jericho's promos are absolutely golden. Especially when he can take a phrase such as a little bit of the bubbly and get it so over that they actually create a product through AEW for fans to purchase. That's when you know that you have what it takes to be in this business. And Jericho, time in and time out, has thoroughly demonstrated that. Runner-up, I'm going to give it to Kofi Kingston, especially for what he has done in the latter part of 2019. When his performance in the Elimination Chamber was by far one of the best things that Kofi has done in the years that he's been in WWE. And his matchup with Daniel Bryan at WrestleMania, like I've already said before, one of the better contemporary championship matches at this year's WrestleMania. Now, him going down to 1 F5 because of Brock Lesnar, it saddens me. It saddens me that Vince has no value, no stock whatsoever in what Kofi did as champion. To let him go down after one move, and have him lose the championship to Brock Lesnar. That's probably one of the gleaming things for me to not put Kofi as Male Wrestler of the Year. Now, I'm putting him as runner-up, as a close second, but like I've said already, I'm giving this award to Chris Jericho. So, Chris Jericho, Male Wrestler of the Year 2019, but what about Female Wrestler of the Year? First off, we're going to start with Becky Lynch. Becky earlier this year made history with Ronda Rousey and Charlotte Flair in the first ever women's main event at WrestleMania, where she pinned Rousey's shoulders down to win both the Raw and SmackDown Women's Championship, which gave birth to the Becky Two Belts gimmick. Leading into the Money in the Bank earlier this year, she would become involved in two different storylines that ultimately became intertwined as she defended both the Raw Women's Championship against Lacey Evans and the SmackDown Women's Championship against Charlotte Flair. Becky would be successful in her Raw Women's Championship match, but thanks to interference from Evans, she would lose the SmackDown Women's Championship to Charlotte Flair before Bayley would cash in her newly won Money in the Bank briefcase on Charlotte and won the title. Becky has held the Raw Women's Championship since WrestleMania this year and has tried to become Becky Two Belts once again when she and Charlotte challenged the Kabuki Warriors for the WWE Women's Tag Team Championship at TLC, but came up short there. This past week, Becky threw out a challenge to Asuka, and more than likely, it's going to be for the Raw Women's Championship. The AEW Women's World Champion, Riho. Riho made her debut in AEW earlier this year at AEW's Double or Nothing event, where she teamed up with Hikaru Shida and Ryo Mizunami, I hope I'm saying that correctly, as they defeated the team of Aja Kong, Emi Sakura, and Yuka Sakazaki. At All Out, she defeated Hikaru Shida, which set up the match for the debut episode of AEW Dynamite, where she would be viewed as the underdog against Nyla Rose, but would prevail as she became the first ever AEW Women's World Champion. At Full Gear, she successfully defended the championship against her mentor and trainer for over 22 years, Emi Sakura, in a superb match, and one could say quite the emotional one, especially for Emi Sakura, judging from her fighting back the tears during their introduction. As of late, she's been involved in the Stardom promotion, where she made a surprise appearance on August 10th and defeated Death Yamasan and Starlight Kid to win the High Speed Championship for the first time. Needless to say, she's earned her spot here. Shayna Baszler. Where would the NXT Women's Division be right now without Shayna Baszler? Let's take a look at some of the matches she's had this year. She's defended the championship against Bianca Belair at NXT TakeOver Phoenix, where Baszler literally got whipped in her stomach by Bianca's hair and got cut up from it. At TakeOver New York, she retained the championship in a fatal four-way against Bianca Belair, Kairi Sane, and Io Shirai. The June 26th edition of NXT is where she had that steel cage match with Io. She would become involved in the first ever women's War Games match, and at Survivor Series, she would defeat Bayley and Becky Lynch in a triple threat match. She had an exceptionally good match with Rhea Ripley, but would end up finally, after well over a year of being champion, lose the title to the former NXT UK Women's Champion, Tessa Blanchard. Tessa has had quite the eventful 2019, to say the least. In WoW Women of Wrestling, she dethroned the previously undefeated Jungle Girl for the WoW World Championship on the February 15th episode, and would defend the title against the likes of Faith the Lioness, Reina Reyes, Serpentine, and Jungle Girl, but it was at the second season finale of WoW where she would drop the title to the Beast, and no, I don't mean Brock Lesnar. She's also making waves over at Impact Wrestling. She defeated Gail Kim in her retirement match at Impact Wrestling Rebellion. At Slammiversary earlier this year, she became involved in Impact's first ever intergender match, where she took on and lost to Sami Callihan, but one could view this as the start of a major rivalry between the two. At Bound for Glory, she competed in a ladder match for the X Division Championship, which was won by Ace Austin, and currently she's set to take on Sami Callihan at Hard to Kill, where she'll become the first woman ever to challenge for the Impact World Heavyweight Championship, the current SmackDown Women's Champion. But it's not just that, but a lot of the events that transpired throughout the year that led up to this. First off, winning the Women's Money in the Bank ladder match and cashing it in on Charlotte Flair to win said SmackDown Women's Championship, and she held on to the title until she lost it to Flair at Hell in the Cell, who apparently just had to have her 10th reign as champion, be it as short as it was. Bayley would get a rematch somehow on the second week of Friday Night SmackDown on Fox, which was the draft episode where she would debut a new haircut and a new attitude and pretty much mangled her trademark Bayley buddies, which devastated one of her younger former fans to tears. And that video has been played quite a bit on WWE television. One of her first SmackDown challengers was Nikki Cross, and had some decent matches with her, and more notably was the triple threat match she had at Survivor Series with Becky and Shayna, even though she came out on the losing end per se, and is currently involved in an angle with the newly turned face, Lacey Evans. My honorable mention for Female Wrestler of the Year is Io Shirai, the woman known as the Genius of the Sky. However, it wasn't until she turned on Candice LeRae after her second loss to Shayna Baszler where Io's popularity began to soar. She adopted a darker, crazier persona, which has resonated with the fans in an incredible way. Yes, technically she's a heel, but you wouldn't know that from the cheers and the adulation she gets from the fans during her entrances, which are kind of seizure-inducing with the strobe lights but she has cemented herself as a breakout star this year with her incredible matches with Candice and Mia Yim, to her incredible performance in the Women's War Games match this year, where she executed that incredible moonsault off the top of the cage, which wowed the crowd to say the least. So, after hearing all of these great candidates, just who is my selection for Female Wrestler of the Year? I'm going to Io Shirai. She has captivated the crowd. She is taking this new persona of hers. She has made this work for her. You can tell this by the reactions she's getting from the crowd for every show that she goes to. If this gimmick was not working, if this gimmick, this new persona with Io, this darker, crazier side to her persona, didn't resonate, didn't gel with the crowd, one, you would be able to tell because the crowd would either boo her or not care. And there's one thing I've been told in the wrestling industry. The only thing that's worse than getting a negative response is getting no response. But she is getting a huge pops from the crowd for every match she does. And like I've said before, she's technically a heel. She was on Shayna Baszler's team at the Women's War Game match. So she's technically a heel, but she's basically a heel that everybody loves. And I just respect the hell out of her because of how talented she is. Now, if anything, I am going to give a very close second, a runner-up, to Tessa Blanchard. I mean, Tessa is in high demand wherever she goes. Whether it's Impact Wrestling, whether it's another independent promotion, whether it's Wow Women Wrestling, wherever Tessa goes, she makes headlines. I believe she's also a former Rhea de Reyes champion in AAA Lucha Libre. She's been a champion over there too. So, Tessa Blanchard, she's got the stuff. And she was in WWE for a very, very brief period of time. But apparently WWE did not capitalize on how good of a talent she is. Because if they did, she would be a big money maker for Vince McMahon right now. Guaranteed. Look what she's doing in Impact Wrestling. She was in Gail Kim's retirement match. She's going to be the first woman ever to challenge for the Impact World Heavyweight Championship against Sami Callihan at Hard to Kill. She is making headlines in the wrestling industry wherever she goes. Doesn't matter what the show is. Doesn't matter where it's at. She is money. But I firmly believe Io Shirai has had a better year. So that is my selection for Female Wrestler of the Year. So let's move on to tag teams. The Viking Raiders, the current Raw Tag Team Champions. They've had quite an interesting year. At one point, they were known as the War Raiders, and were the former NXT Tag Team Champions who had to retire as champions because no one could beat them before moving up to the main roster, where for the first week only, they were renamed. And for those of you who don't know, the video still exists on YouTube, the Viking Experience. And this was allegedly due to Vince McMahon not liking the name War, even though Raw used to be called Raw is War. The very next week, they were renamed the Viking Raiders due to the overwhelmingly negative criticism the previous name received. For weeks, they were paired off against jobber tag teams, but on the August 26th edition of Raw, they were involved in a tag team turmoil match to determine new champions, and they would end up brawling with the OC, Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson, which led to both teams being disqualified. However, it wasn't until October, where they dethroned Robert Roode and Dolph Ziggler, they would become the Raw Tag Team Champions. and pretty much remained unbeaten until the Tag Team Cup at Crown Jewel, where the OC defeated the Raiders to become the best tag team in the world, and wherever the OC goes, the Cup always follows. They've been involved a lot with the OC in late December as they battled at TLC to a double countout, and on the December 16th episode of Raw, teamed up with Randy Orton in a losing effort against the OC. The New Day, the current SmackDown Tag Team Champions. As a faction, a pretty successful year to say the least. At one point, they held all the gold, as Kofi won the WWE Championship at WrestleMania. Then, at Extreme Rules, Woods and Big E defeated Daniel Bryan, Eric Rowan, and Heavy Machinery in a triple threat match for the SmackDown Tag Team Championship. They held on to the tag titles until Clash of Champions, where they were defeated by the Revival, while Kofi lost the WWE Championship to Brock Lesnar on Fox's debut episode of Friday Night SmackDown. A little over a month later, Kofi and Big E regained the SmackDown Tag Team Championship and had an amazing ladder match with the Revival at TLC. Bobby Fish and Kyle O'Reilly of the Undisputed Era. They have been involved in so many great tag team matches in NXT this year. At NXT TakeOver 25, they were involved in the Fatal 4-Way ladder match for the then vacated NXT Tag Team titles, along with the Street Profits, who won that match, Oney Lorcan and Danny Burch, and the Forgotten Sons. O'Reilly tore up his back pretty good, and even though they didn't win it all, it was still a hell of a match to watch. Fish and O'Reilly would challenge the Profits for the titles at TakeOver Toronto, but fell short of regaining the gold. It wasn't until the August 15th tapings of NXT that Fish and O'Reilly regained the championships from the Street Profits, and with Roderick Strong winning the North American Championship on September 18th, the Undisputed Era became the first faction to hold all three male championships on NXT. That is the NXT Championship, the NXT North American Championship, and the NXT Tag Team Championship. And this was done before the WWE Cruiserweight Championship was rechristened the NXT Cruiserweight Championship. And who can forget about what they did in War Games this year? The Kabuki Warriors. This is my channel, right? My year in awards? This is my channel. So I'm including Asuka and Kairi Sane here. They came together through Paige earlier this year on SmackDown and made continuous attempts at the Iconics for the WWE Women's Tag Team Championship, but somehow fell short. It wouldn't be until Paige would go out due to a neck surgery and a new attitude from the Kabukis and a green mist to the face of Nikki Cross at Hell in a Cell this year, where the Kabukis finally claimed what is theirs, and that is the WWE Women's Tag Team Championship. They have been on top of the division since then and defeated all challengers, even defending the titles at NXT against Tegan Nox and Dakota Kai, but this was before she turned heel at War Games. They did, however, have a less than stellar TLC match with Becky Lynch and Charlotte Flair, but I still feel that was mostly due to Kairi possibly suffering a concussion during the match. SoCal Uncensored. The current AEW World Tag Team Champions, Frankie Kazarian and Scorpio Sky. How could I not include them here after their performance in the Tag Team title tournament? The finale of that tournament, where they defeated the Lucha Brothers, was an immensely good match. And in a tag match later in the year, Scorpio Sky pinned Chris Jericho to hand Le Champion his first loss in AEW, which led to a classic Jericho meltdown and a one-on-one match for the AEW World Championship. However, Scorpio Sky fell to capture the championship. Their current reign is at nearly 60 days right now. And right now in AEW, all the inaugural champions, that is Chris Jericho, that is Riho, and that is SoCal Uncensored, have yet to lose their championships. So, after all that, who am I selecting for Tag Team of the Year? Guys, it's my channel. You have to know by now. I'm going with the Kabuki Warriors. If you don't know me by now, then you will never know me. But I will give my runner-up to Kyle O'Reilly and Bobby Fish. I mean, they have really shined this year in NXT. Like I said before, they were incredibly good in the Fatal 4-Way ladder match, where even though they did not win the championship, they really wowed the crowd and showed what they can do. And I always keep asking this question: how do you take a bump on a metal ladder? Someone here in Louisiana tried to answer that for me, and then I blanked out and had a seizure after his answer. That's all I'm going to say. But anyway, now on to Show of the Year. We got Monday Night Raw. We also have Friday Night SmackDown. But to be honest, guys, I just have Raw and SmackDown here as a formality. Raw and SmackDown creatively have been, well, I'm going to say it right out. It's been shit. Raw and SmackDown have basically dropped in the ratings and have had a continual spiral down. Now, there have been a few weeks where, you know, things look promising. And it looked like they were going to have a good show. I would have to say the debut episode of the new season on Monday Night Raw with Vic Joseph, Dio Madden, and Jerry the King Lawler on commentary was a decent show. Friday Night SmackDown on Fox, the debut episode was okay for what it was. However, I did not like the idea that they had to have Kofi Kingston lose the WWE Championship in one move to Brock Lesnar, all just so they could bring in Cain Velasquez, and they could set up a match with those two for the WWE Championship at Crown Jewel, and what a shit show that was. So, like I've said before, Raw and SmackDown are here basically as a formality. The two bigger shows to consider are NXT and AEW Dynamite. Let me start with NXT. The Wednesday Night Wars, in a sense, which is basically this generation's Monday Night Wars, when WWE and WCW were battling each other every Monday night for TV supremacy in the wrestling industry. And it was the Attitude Era and the Monday Night Wars was an immensely great time to be a wrestling fan, because you just had so much of the product to watch. And now we've got that again. We've got that here on Wednesday nights with NXT and All Elite Wrestling Dynamite. And at the start, it was incredible. NXT, on their debut episode on USA, opened up with Adam Cole defending against Matt Riddle the NXT Championship commercial-free, and it was an incredibly good match. 5 out of 5, if I have to put it. It was an amazing match. AEW, on the other side, crowned their first ever inaugural AEW Women's World Champion with Riho when she took on the much larger Nyla Rose. It was... And they've had some really decent shows. You know, don't get me wrong. Chris Jericho is the right guy right now to be world champion. You need somebody like a Chris Jericho who is incredibly charismatic. He is immensely entertaining. There's a reason why he is the 2019 WGS-TV Male Wrestler of the Year. I wasn't just blowing smoke, guys. Jericho has basically become the face of AEW. Whenever you want to watch AEW Dynamite, it's always, what is Jericho doing? I definitely got to see it. And just how entertaining is it? I mean, prime example. He recently had a 10-minute challenge match with Jungle Boy Jack Perry. Jericho would end up on the losing end because Jungle Boy survived the 10 minutes. And then the reaction he did with Tony Schiavone was absolutely entertaining. And then, of course, he started leading towards the build with him and possibly Jon Moxley at AEW Revolution in February. Now, the one thing that I'm starting to not like about AEW, for one, is the amount of heel factions there are on the show. There's the Inner Circle. You got the Nightmare Collective with Brandy Rose, Awesome Kong, and whoever that other person is, and that mystery guy whose face is always turned with his back turned to the camera so we can't see who he is. And then there's the Dark Order with Evil Uno and his BDSM midgets. You've got too many factions on one show, all trying to tell a convoluted heel storyline. It's like AEW is trying so hard, and at first they had the formula to success. They had it good. You know, they were having great matches creatively. They were doing things well, especially going into week 2, especially when they were setting up for Jericho and Darby Allin in that street fight, and that was immensely well done too. But things just started getting goofier and goofier, and it made me think, gee, did they just steal some of the writers from WWE Creative? And think, oh, they're doing this in WWE, this must be good, so we can do this too. That is not what they need to do. I am telling you that for a fact. Now, AEW has implemented a ranking system, and they actually count wins and losses, which is something I have never seen a wrestling promotion do. So will they hold up to it in 2020? That's what I would like to see. But on a week in and week out basis of having good, consistent shows, I want to give it to AEW Dynamite. But I can't. NXT has by far been the more consistent brand. They've had immensely good shows, especially with their involvement also in Survivor Series on the main roster. How could you not draw in ratings from that? And then I have to say, the past few weeks, especially involving Keith Lee, and if Ashley was here, he'd probably be going, "Oh, don't you forget about Keith." I can't sing like Ashley can. He's much better at it. I'm much better at talking. But he has created some incredible memes, such as when he pounced Adam Cole and basically sent him flying into the crowd like he was a rag doll. And then the other gif of when Finn Balor is in the corner and Keith Lee just gets up from the ring ropes with that look of, you better not fuck with me. Those two memes are just hilarious. And now that Johnny Gargano is returned from injury, and more than likely now will have a feud with Finn Balor, that should be some great TV to watch. So, my pick for show of the year is going to go to NXT. Now, I have a very special award I would like to hand out. For those of you, again, who are not familiar with my channel, I am a wrestling commentator here in Louisiana. So I would like to have at least one mention of a Louisiana Wrestler of the Year award. And I'm going to give that award to Mad Dog Gail Gracie. Right now, he is the only two-time Pro Wrestling 225 heavyweight champion.
So I would like to accept this award for the 2019 Wrestler of the Year in Louisiana for the Mad Dog Gail Gracie. But I feel like this is a sham. This is Plymouth Rock landing on us. We've bamboozled. We've been run amok and all of that because Mad Dog Gail Gracie is the Wrestler of the Year for the universe, for the galaxy, for this whole dimension, if you will. So I want all you test tube babies and mouth huggers to get it right when you vote for next year, because we're going to win again. And if you're not rocking with that, shut your face.
Well, guys, that's been my 2019 year-end awards. What did you guys think? Do you agree with my selections? Or do you have your own selections for Male Wrestler of the Year, Female Wrestler of the Year, Tag Team of the Year, there are also the Show of the Year? I definitely want to hear what you guys out there have to say. Be sure you put your comments in the comment section below. If you guys like this video, be sure you slam that like button like a champ. And if you guys want to see more of WrestleDOWN right here on the channel, you know the two ways you got to do it. You got to leg drop the subscribe button and hit that bell icon to turn on notification, so that way you guys will never miss out on another video right here on my channel. So with that being said, I'm your friendly neighborhood WrestleGamer, reminding all of you guys out there to just stay awesome. Bye, guys!